Why are you still waiting for life to happen when life is waiting on you? Not your vision board, not your morning routine, not your journal, your goals, or even your prayers. Life is responding to one thing: who you are. See, most people think reality is passive. They think it's out there happening to them. They wake up hoping for good news, wishing something will finally change. But the truth is far more radical and also far more empowering. Reality obeys identity. It bends, shapes, and rearranges in response to the energy that you put out there, that you broadcast. Not what you say you believe, but what your being actually believes. Not what you want to be true, but what your nervous system has decided is true. And this is where most people get stuck. They try to manifest something new while staying loyal to an old identity. They speak abundance while embodying lack. They declare, I'm confident, while still living as a doubter. They ask for miracles, but show up as a man who doesn't believe he's worthy of receiving them. Reality isn't confused, it simply reflects. And until you shift who you're being, you'll keep recreating more of the same. Okay, and there's a deeper law operating underneath all of this. The mystics knew it, the prophets embodied it, and the most powerful men throughout history lived by it. Reality has no choice but to obey who you are. And in today's episode, I'll show you exactly how to become a man reality cannot ignore. We'll walk through the spiritual, the stoic, the psychological, and the scientific truth behind identity-driven creation. And at the end, I'll give you 5 practices to help shift your way of being at the root, so you don't just wish for a new life, you become the man it belongs to. Okay, because let me ask you something direct. Have you ever wondered why you can know what you want, do the work, say the affirmations, follow the steps, and still feel like nothing's changing? Like there's some invisible ceiling that keeps pulling you back to the same outcomes. I lived there for years, and I can tell you right now, it wasn't an issue with strategy. It was plain and simple. It was me, who I was being deep down. I was still rooted in the old story. Right, and I'll take you back a few years. Right, because at this point, from the outside, my life looked rosy and great. Right, I was trying to be positive. I had the goals, the plans, even had the vision board. But if you stripped all of that away, what was really going on was I didn't believe I was good enough. I didn't believe I was worthy. I didn't believe I deserved success. I was still carrying shame, self-doubt, and the unconscious belief that if I got to a certain level, it would all come crashing down. So guess what? Reality met me right there. Every time I got a bit of momentum, something would happen to sabotage it. Every breakthrough that I had was followed by a breakdown. I'd blame life. I'd blame other people. And sometimes I would blame God when at that point I didn't even believe that God existed. But the truth, reality was never the problem. My identity was the issue. The man I was being couldn't hold the future that I said that I wanted because I hadn't yet become the version of me who could receive it without guilt, without collapse, without running back to the struggle because that's what felt safer. It's all I ever knew. Right? And I remember the night it all shifted. Sitting alone, broke again, not just financially, but spiritually exhausted. Nothing I was doing seemed to work. I was working harder than ever, but it's like I just couldn't catch a break. I was sitting there feeling sorry for myself because I genuinely believed I was doing everything right. Meditating, journaling, eating right, going to the gym, being a great father, being a great husband, and I was doing all the right things. And I just remember that kind of feeling sorry for myself, and I was like, why is this keep fucking happening to me? And then for the first time, I heard something deeper than I thought, and it was not from my mind, right? It came from a place much deeper, and it said to me, because you're still being the man who loses. And I was like, not the one who wants to win, not the one who's trying to change, but who fundamentally expects loss. And I knew this was true because in the back of my mind for my whole life, I always had the belief that this wouldn't work out no matter what I was doing. I believed at some point I would sabotage it or I would fail. And this wrecked me, right? But that awareness was pivotal because that woke me up. And see, from that moment, I made a decision because the thing was, I knew all the teachings. I had read the books on reality creation. I had went through the programs. I'd even hired 2 of the best creative mastery coaches there was out there. The issue was I wasn't implementing what I knew to be true. So how could I expect to get the results I wanted? See, I understood the mirror principle, but I wasn't using it. And if reality is just a mirror, then all I had to do was change the image it reflects. Not by force, not by hustling harder, but by becoming the man my vision belonged to. Not next week, not tomorrow, but right now. And that's when shit started to shift for me. Now, this didn't happen instantly. It didn't all happen all at once. But the shift became permanent. Because when you change your being, you give reality no choice but to obey. Right? And we should be taught this shit at school. Right? Reality isn't responding to what you want, it's responding to who you are. And that might sound subtle, but it's not. It's massive. It's everything. We live in a culture obsessed with action. Take massive action. Go crush your goals. Grind harder. Hustle harder. You know, and this is just wrong. Because ancient wisdom, spiritual wisdom, Stoic, and even scientific, research tells a different story. Your being shapes your world, right? And to understand it, we need to break it down, right? In every sacred tradition, the outer world is described as a mirror of your inner world. The Hermetic principle of correspondence, right? As within, so without. As above, so below. Right? Neville Goddard taught us this. He says, your assumptions harden into facts. He didn't say your efforts harden into facts. He said your assumptions, the beliefs you carry as your identity. Right? And also in the Bible, Proverbs 23:7, that says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Not what he thinks, but what he thinks in his heart. So in other words, his state of being. So when you walk around saying, I'm trying to succeed, I want more money, I'm working on my relationship, but your being is still laced with scarcity, unworthiness, and fear, what you're really broadcasting to the universe is, I am not the man who has these things. And the universe, like a mirror, simply reflects it back to you. Okay, and the Stoics as well, they didn't teach people to obsess over controlling the external world. They trained themselves to master their character, their internal state. Right? Circumstances don't rise to meet your expectations, you rise to meet your character. So what does that mean? You don't get what you hope for, you get what your character is forced to receive. And this is the Stoics understood that. External chaos means nothing if your internal state is ordered. Because life will test you. It will contract. It will collapse. And if your identity isn't strong enough, you'll fall with it. But if your identity is clear, coherent, and unshakable, reality will bend around you. And also, Carl Jung, and I've said this phrase I don't know how many times, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Right? Most people think they're setting goals, but it's their unconscious identity that's running the show. If deep down you still believe, like I did, I will always sabotage things, I will always fuck things up, money is hard to keep, right? I don't deserve real love, then it doesn't matter how clear your vision board is. Your nervous system will protect the identity it knows, even if it's painful. This is why therapy, trauma work, shadow integration, it all matters. Because you're not failing to manifest, you're just succeeding at being who you currently are. And if you look at it from a neuroscience perspective, you've got your reticular activating system, right? That is the filter in your brain. It's wired to show you the world that matches your dominant identity. When you say, I'm not enough, like enough times, your brain filters out opportunities that would prove otherwise. But when you begin to change your identity, when you begin to embody a different self-image, your perception of reality changes, literally. Right? Studies have shown us neuroplasticity shows that the brain rewires itself based on repeated states of being, not just thinking. Right? And that's the key. You don't create change through wishful thinking. You create change through embodied identity shifts. Your nervous system calibrates to a new baseline, and your life starts to reorganize itself around that. Because reality isn't fixed, it's responsive. And when you anchor into a new identity, you don't ask reality to change. You give it no choice. So let's look at this step-by-step framework, right? Because this is where we move from insight to embodiment. Because knowing the truth isn't enough. You must be it before you see it. You must become it, right? And let's look at 5 steps to shift your identity and give reality no choice but to reflect who you truly are, right? Step number 1, clarify the identity you're committed to, right? Most men set goals, right? Few men define their identity, and that's why they stay stuck. So here's your first assignment. Forget about what you want for a moment, right? And instead, ask yourself, who must I become to naturally live the life I desire, right? Close your eyes, right? Visualize this guy. How does he speak? How does he walk, right? How does he walk into a room? What does he tolerate? What does he no longer entertain? How does he treat people? How does he respond? What's his relationship to time, to money, to energy? Get a full, sensory picture of this man, right? Everything. How he dresses, how he smells, how he communicates, everything. And get a clear vision of this man, right? Name that version of you, right? Get intimate with him and understand this man fully. Because this version isn't in the future. He exists right now when you make the choice. Okay, number 2, audit your environment for identity leaks. You can't hold a king's identity in a jester's environment. Look around your world and ask yourself, what habits reinforce the old identity? Are you drinking, watching porn, messing around, doing things that you shouldn't be doing? Right? What relationships keep you playing small? Hanging about with people who don't have any vision for their own life. They're just drinking buddies. They're constantly gossiping. Right? What patterns make you forget who you really are? Right? Clean it all up. Right? Get new habits that enforce your new identity. Surround yourself with people who are inspirational, who are going to move you forward, who are going to propel you. Right? Adopt new patterns that reinforce this new identity. Now, this doesn't mean cutting everybody off. It means setting energetic boundaries, reclaiming your space, making your physical environment a mirror of your chosen self, not your conditioned self. Because if your outer world constantly contradicts your inner shift, you'll collapse back into what's familiar. Okay, number 3, practice being before doing. Right? Most men try to act their way into a new identity, but true power comes when you become it first. This is why I say you must be it before you will see it. Before you send that message, before you make that move, or launch that offer, before you do anything, just pause, reflect, take 30 seconds, 60 seconds, drop into your breath, take a big deep breath, and ask yourself, what version of me would naturally do this with ease? Then act from that identity. This rewires your nervous system, and your nervous system is the gatekeeper of your reality. When your body starts to feel safe being this new version of you, your reality begins to respond accordingly. Okay, number 4, use micro decisions to signal a new standard. You don't need to blow up your life to change it, but you do need to start making different micro decisions every single day, right? Every time you say no to what drains you, say yes to what stretches you, show up fully when it's easier to shrink, you're telling yourself, your reality, this is who I am now. And then your reality will listen. These decisions are like sacred contracts. Each one, a chisel to the old self and a hammer for the new one, right? Number 5, anchor the identity with daily embodiment. Don't think your way into a new identity. Train your way into it. Create daily rituals that reinforce who you are, right? For example, spend 5 minutes, first thing, visualizing you stepping into this new version of yourself, right? This is what I would recommend everyone do, right? What values does he hold? How's he walking? How's he talking? How's he dealing with people, right? Spend 5 minutes just cementing this new version of you, right? Then jump into a cold shower for 30 seconds while affirming your new standards, right? Take a daily walk rehearsing the new way of being. Spend time every week journaling to track who you're becoming, what you no longer tolerate, how you're feeling in this new version. The key here is consistency over intensity. You're not trying to peak, right? You're recalibrating your baseline, because when this identity becomes your default, you don't have to try anymore. You just are. And once you are, reality obeys. Okay, so let's pause here, right? Not to add more information, but let's integrate what you already know deep down. Because this isn't about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you are before the world told you who you were supposed to be. So I'm going to ask you some questions now. I want you to feel them in your body, not analyze them in your head. Feel them in your body. Take a big, deep breath. Drop your shoulders. Be still. And ask yourself honestly, who are you when no one's watching? Right? When no one needs you to perform, to please, to provide, to perfect. Who are you then? Okay? What part of you have you been suppressing to fit in, to stay safe, to keep the peace? And what has that suppression cost you? Energy, integrity, vitality, your voice? Are you ready to stop convincing reality and start commanding it? Not through your ego, not through force, but through unshakable alignment. Because here's the hard truth. You don't get what you want, you get what you are. And the version of you that keeps waiting, hesitating, second guessing, he's already getting his results. So if you want different results, you must become different. And that starts right now. Not with effort, but with a decision to embody the frequency of the man who's already there. The version of you who needs no permission because he's already aligned. That version is you right now. He's just waiting for you to stop pretending you're someone else. Listen, brother, you were never meant to negotiate with life. You were never meant to beg reality to treat you better. You came here to command, not from arrogance, but from alignment. Because when your identity is congruent, when your frequency is clear, when your decisions match your destiny, reality has no choice. It must reflect back to you the truth of who you've become. Not eventually, not someday, but now in every single moment. The world you see is not objective, it's a mirror. And the mirror is waiting for you to stop wishing and start being. You don't need to scream louder. You don't need to stand taller. You don't need more affirmations. You need more alignment. You need to get more clarity. Because once you become the man who has it, the path will naturally unfold and not before. Okay? There's no shortcuts. There's no hacks. There's no tricks. There's only you. Clear, aligned, unshakable. You're not here to earn your dream. You're here to match it. So the question is, will you keep trying to attract a new life with the same old frequency? Or will you become the version of you that reality cannot ignore? The choice is yours. But once you make it, reality will obey. Okay, and if this message hit home, brother, drop in the comments. I decide. This is your energetic signature. This is when you start becoming. Okay? And as always, if you haven't already, subscribe. Give me a wee like, turn off the notifications. Because as always, this isn't surface level motivation. This is the path of alignment, embodiment, and personal power. Right? Every single time I bring a video to you, this is grounded in spiritual, scientific truth. It's going to help you become the man that reality can't help but respond to. And if you know any other brothers out there who are stuck, living as a fraction of themselves, caught between hoping and doubting, send them this video. Because when a man aligns with who he really is, everything changes. Not by accident, but by design. It's time to give reality no choice. Because you've remembered who you are. Let's build it from there. And as always, I appreciate you. I truly love you. You're not alone. Let's rise up together. Okay, take care. And I've got another video for you here, and you can subscribe here. Catch you in the next one.